Welcome to the Manning Up on Real Estate podcast. This is the podcast where we will have real talk on what is happening in the local market of Greater Vancouver. Here we'll discuss the news, strategies, and interviews to help you man up on your real estate career. I'm your host, Cameron Manning. All right, everyone, welcome back to the Manning Up on Real Estate podcast. I'm super happy to have you guys here again joining me, and today we've got another awesome interview for you guys. I'm being joined today by none other than the Carlos Gill from downtown LA today. Carlos, welcome to the podcast.
Cameron, it is a pleasure to be here on the podcast with you.
All right. So, Carlos, just quickly while we dive in here, maybe we can just start off. For those of you guys who don't know Carlos, and I really suggest by the end of this, you guys go and follow him. But maybe you can kind of tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you, what you do, and why, realtors need to be following you and what your advice is.
Yeah. So once again, Cameron, thank you so much for having me here on the podcast. For your listeners out there that aren't familiar with the work that I do, I am a brand marketer and social media thought leader and speaker. And what does that all mean? Well, I've spent the last 10 years of my career working for big corporations, some that you've probably heard of before, like LinkedIn.com. I used to work at LinkedIn running social media marketing. I've also worked for other companies and corporations like Winn-Dixie, which is one of the largest supermarket chains in the United States. I spent time running digital marketing at Save-A-Lot, another supermarket chain. And then most recently, BMC Software as their global head of social media before starting my own digital marketing agency in Gill Media. And the work that I've done with the real estate agents actually goes back to my youth, right? So my mom and dad are real estate brokers in Florida. I grew up in Fort Lauderdale, specifically in a suburb of Fort Lauderdale named Weston. And for those of you that are familiar with the Fort Lauderdale or South Florida region, and I grew up with real estate in my blood. And instead of going down the path of working in the family business, I was a little hard-headed as a youngster. I decided to work in financial services. And from the age of 19 to about 25, I worked in financial services. And I thought that life was good. I was on this fast track to success. I had a great career at the time, owned several homes because we're talking about like pre-recession here in the US, 2002, 2003-ish.
So
And then right around 2008, the economy dipped. It tanked. I was out of a job and I had no options whatsoever. And I just want to preface by saying I don't have a college degree. I didn't even finish high school. I got my GED. So at 25 years old, I'm sitting here thinking, well, what am I going to do now? There's no banks hiring in the US. I just got laid off from AIG, which is one of the culprits of this financial crisis that we're in. And at the advice of my mom, she said to me, Carlos, you should join this thing called LinkedIn. And I had no idea what LinkedIn was. And I asked her, well, like, Mom, what is this? How do you and dad use it? And she said, and again, this is 2008 now. She said, your dad and I use LinkedIn to have HR executives refer us business from doctors that are moving from Canada and from the Northeast down to Florida. And we help them with their relocation services. And she said to me, this is a great resource for realtors. And I'm sure that because we're getting value out of it, you can get value out of it also in finding a job. And long story short, Cameron and listeners, I joined LinkedIn the same day I lost my job, November 5th, 2008. I probably spent like the next 48 hours getting to understand LinkedIn and what it was all about. And after that initial period of feeling down and out because I lost my job, I decided, I'm going to start a job board. And that was really where my career began anew. So I went from financial services to all of a sudden an entrepreneur at 25 with no money backing me up, no experience in marketing. And all of a sudden I want to help all of America and beyond find jobs. It was like my personal mission. So I'm a few years into running an online job board. I'm doing these events all over the US called Pink Slip Parties. I'm getting all this media coverage. And I was able to do this because of social media. I really learned social media from the ground up. And part of that, I was doing all the things that nowadays we hear gurus and thought leaders talk about, which was using social media to sell, using social media to build a personal brand. Heck, I was using social media to put food on the table for my young family back then. And I became really good at understanding how this methodology between forming relationships to then hopefully get business worked. And one of my clients at the time, being Winn-Dixie, approached me then in 2011 and said, hey, we've got this opening for our first ever head of corporate social. Are you interested in it? They offered me a really good salary and bonus and benefits. And I was like, heck yeah. And, the rest is kind of history. I've been doing this now for quite some time as an entrepreneur and as a corporate marketer. And part of the work that I've been doing specifically over the last few years is in the real estate industry. I was really fortunate to meet at the time the chief people officer for Keller Williams Real Estate a few years ago when I was speaking at a conference called South by Southwest in Austin, which is where Keller Williams is headquartered. And that just one-off meeting, and her name's Holly Priestner. Having Holly see me speak led to meetings with Chris Heller, who was the CEO of Keller Williams at the time. And long story short, I became a coach with Keller Williams under their MAPS coaching division, and I started a social media for real estate agents program. And today I've had the good fortune of saying I've been able to work with thousands of agents, yourself being one of them, Cameron.
Yep.
And I really enjoy the work that I do with the realtors, specifically in real estate agents, because to me, a real estate agent is a entrepreneur. Your product is not just real estate, but you are the product. The service that you provide is you. And I tell you what, if you're not focusing on doubling and tripling down on growing your personal brand and kind of building that celebrity factor, if you will, in your own community, then you're really missing a huge opportunity that's right in front of you.
And so that's the thing. I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head there. It's all about building a brand. Marketing online is not so much about the actual selling of the product, but it's creating that brand so people want to work with you, especially if you're a realtor. And that's something that you've done very, very well with your social media. In fact, you now go and speak internationally quite a bit. Is that correct?
Yeah, I've had the good fortune of speaking abroad quite a bit over the last few years. I've spoken throughout Europe and South America, and I'm actually going to be in Canada next month. I'm really excited. It'll be my first trip up to Canada. I've never been, if you can believe that. And
he's going to Banff too,
my mission's real simple. It's to motivate, educate, and inspire. So if you follow me across social media, I guarantee that at some point you will either learn something that you'll be able to apply in your career or your business, or at least you'll be able to feel a little bit better about yourself.
So, kind of going forward, because there's a lot of realtors that are out there that are not on social media, and I mean, I hear a lot of the excuses too. It's a young man's game. It's everything else like this. What are these agents truly missing when they're not joining in on the social media? I mean, I don't want to say bandwagon because there's it's the way the trends are going, right? But what are they truly missing by not getting in and creating that brand?
Well, I think first of all, real estate agents need to look at social media less as a fad and look at it more as it's a tool, no different than other tools that you have at your disposal. So I'll give you an example. I know a lot of real estate agents that are still doing mailers, and they will literally sit in their office and spend an entire day handwriting people's names and addresses and stuffing pieces of paper into an envelope that's probably never going to be opened. And I often say to real estate agents that are doing this tactic, well, why don't you think about doing Facebook ads instead? It's going to save you time, and now you can target people and you can be much more effective with your approach to, in this case, direct response marketing. So a lot of what I find myself doing, Cameron, is connecting the old methodologies with the new methodologies. At the end of the day, you're still doing the same thing. You're trying to get on someone's radar because you want to sell them a piece of property. Or like in your case, you're educating people on how to invest in property. Again, you're still selling. So I think it's just really connecting the new school tools and rules, connecting them with this older methodology. So I've heard everything from agents that they don't have time for this or they don't get it. And regardless of how old or young you are or how long you've been in this business, social media is not going away. And this is the new way of forming relationships and meeting people. And I think, once again, if you're not using social media, then you're really going to get lapped within your own industry. Let's face it, you have over 2 million NAR members. The average age in the industry, yes, is in the mid 50s, but I don't use it as an excuse. My mom's right in that demographic, and she's all over Instagram and all over Facebook, and kind of goes back to this mantra of, how big do you want to be? the most successful agents I'm seeing today nowadays are doing exactly what you're doing, Cameron. They're building a brand within their own community, and it's not difficult. It just takes time. But it's just documenting what you're doing. And as you're meeting people in your community, you're connecting on LinkedIn, you're connecting on Instagram. I think one of the biggest mistake that people make is they think too much about the numbers. They think that they have to have this mega presence on Instagram or on social media. And, they think that they have to be on a Ryan Serhant level. Like in the marketing world I'm in, I would say like Gary Vee is who a lot of people, and that's Gary Vaynerchuk. A lot of people aspire to be on that level from a notoriety standpoint. I would say, and correct me if I'm wrong, in real estate, it's Ryan Serhant. Because again, it's a highly visible figure, and you don't have to be on that level if you're in Vancouver or if you're in Des Moines, Iowa, or if you're in Jacksonville, Florida. You just have to be the biggest fish in a small pond.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think a lot of people do focus on that. Growing social media is definitely not easy by any means. It takes time, and a lot of people start looking at the metrics and they start seeing, the post only got 50 likes and I've only got 200 followers. But it really is. I mean, I'd rather have 200 solid followers that are wanting to do business with me every year than I actually would want to have 2,000 people following me and no one giving me any business at all. So, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, that's why they're called vanity metrics for a reason, right?
Well, let me interrupt you there, right? So you just said 200 followers, right? Let's say those 200 followers that truly support you and follow you, because there's difference between someone that just hit a follow button and someone who's like a legitimate follower and supporter of you. First of all, and I like to do this a lot when I'm speaking on stages at conferences, because it's a lot easier to represent this, right? Like if I'm in a conference, I kind of break up that audience into threes. Let's just say there's 1,000 people in front of me.
Okay.
And like, there's like 1/3 of the room is to my right. Another third is in the middle. Another third is to the left. When I break down that 1/3 right in front of me, I have 1,000 people. Let's just say that that's going to be like 300 and some change. That's a lot of people. Right. So if I were to go ahead and say to you, Cameron, you've got 200 followers on social media, but these people are like super Cameron Manning fanatics. And if I put all 200 of those in one room at one time, you wouldn't humanly be able to touch and engage with all of them. It just wouldn't happen.
No, absolutely not.
But the reality is this, though. On social media, 100% of your audience is not following you. It's a much smaller number. So I like to put it like this, though, into perspective for you. So you still got your 200 followers, right? But let's just say 10% of them, 10% are referring you business. It's 20 people.
Yep.
How much more commission would you be making a year if 20 people consistently are sending you leads? Let's just say if those 20 people, each one of them send you one new lead a year, and that's 20 new pieces of closed business as a result of those 20 people.
That's huge for most agents. I mean, the average agent out here in Vancouver, they only do 6 deals a year. So if they can create that kind of brand following, I mean, and do that referral business, I mean, that's a game changer for most agents out there.
So that's what I bring up to real estate agents is you don't have to look at this and overanalyze the complexities of follower counts and vanity metrics. The reality is you have to have in your mind, what do you want to get out of social media? So when I train real estate agents, I'm training them to have the mindset of, how much you make right now per month or per year? What if I help you get one new closed deal per month? Would 12 new sales a year be life-changing for you? For most people, yeah, absolutely. When you talk about a market here like Los Angeles, where your average commission is probably between $30,000 to $40,000 a sale, you add an extra 12 sales a year, that's some serious money. Absolutely. That's not chump change.
Nope.
So again, now we're going real micro with this, and we're breaking this down to make it seem really easy, because it is. You don't need to have the Gary Vaynerchuk or Ryan Serhant numbers. The reality is that you just need to focus on getting one new sale a month that's referred to you as a result of your social media activities. That's it. One.
Totally.
So if you have 200 engaged, or if you have 200 followers and you have 20 engaged, how do you get a referral from each one of those 20 people? And that actually, Cameron, is going to be much more challenging, because that's going to require one-on-one offense, right? So think of this as like a tennis match. You're playing offense back and forth. Like, I'll give you an example. I want to speak in Vancouver for your office, Cameron. but I'm also having very similar conversations with other people in my network that also influence those decisions in their offices. So I know that I need to reach multiple people like you in order for me to go ahead and have a closing ratio where I want to be. Same
Absolutely.
principles apply in any single business, whether it's insurance, agency services, real estate. I could go on and on and on.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, no, I mean it really puts things in perspective for a lot of people, and I think that's the key, and that's why too many people. I mean, and try not to pick on the older generation, but I think they get overwhelmed because they see the people, the younger generations that are building it, and it seems complicated. But at the end of the day, if you're just to dedicate even an hour a day just to researching and figuring it out, suddenly social media doesn't seem so hard anymore, especially when you start building that brand awareness. And I think in today's society, with everything moving online, most buyers right now start their searches online. You need to be in that realm. And again, I like what you were talking about, the mailers, right, and versus using Facebook ads. I just want to jump back to that just from a cost perspective. I mean, I don't know what stamps cost down in the States, but we're at about $1 a stamp now, and you got to factor in the envelopes and the piece of paper that you're writing on. Sometimes if you're doing a fancy card, that's going to cost you a little more, versus the price per click, depending on how you set it up, could almost be like pennies on the dollar comparatively. So your marketing budgets actually go a lot further, and you're hitting a broader perspective, right?
Absolutely.
So just kind of going forward here, just looking at social media trends right now, because I know you're kind of on the forefront there. This is your business, social media marketing, online marketing. What platform right now do you think agents should really be taking a look at for 2019? Where do you see the trend really going?
Well, you know what? You see a lot of oversaturation on Instagram, and I think Instagram is a fantastic content marketing platform. So if you're not using Instagram currently, you should be using it. I think if you are using Instagram really well, then another social network that you should be spending time on is LinkedIn. And I'm not referring to using LinkedIn in the same way that you would use Instagram, because your likelihood of finding consumers on there that are going to be interested in buying real estate in your market isn't going to be the same, just from how content is distributed on LinkedIn versus Instagram. But when you start thinking about referral sources, that's where Instagram comes in. And also leveraging Instagram to find high net worth individuals. So once again, someone like yourself, Cameron, who's looking to go ahead and find folks in the investment market, that's where you go on LinkedIn to run searches for, let's say, doctors and lawyers that live in Vancouver, high
Mm-hmm.
net worth individuals. And what I mean by high net worth individual is, you know the job titles in your market for people that are high income earners, and they're typically executives at corporations. Like I said before, they're doctors, they're lawyers, and you can use LinkedIn to find those individuals there and form a relationship with them.
Right.
But at the same time, there's also groups on LinkedIn that you can join. Those groups are industry groups. They are, city and state or country groups in this case. So I would say LinkedIn is uncharted territory for your average real estate agent.
Right. So looking into LinkedIn as a way to really connect with the people that, and again, I like what you say. It's not always about necessarily the sale with that person, but it's establishing that relationship with them so they can continue to refer you. I mean, realtors as a profession, we're a very, when we look at it, we deal with a lot of people's biggest assets at the end of the day, whether it's their home or an investment property or whatever it is. We are considered professionals, just like a lawyer, an accountant, a doctor. So at the end of the day, we should be connecting with those people and showing our professional services to them so they can refer their clientele, because they've got large databases as well that they could be referring to us. And I like what you say. Most of those people are on LinkedIn, so it's very interesting that to look at that perspective when everyone else is a shiny object over on Instagram or something else.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the shiny objects are always going to exist, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're always going to hear about a newer social network. You're always going to kind of see excitement and people buzzing when, something happens, right? Like for example, this happened many years ago when Snapchat was really hot, and then Instagram came out with stories, and then I want to say there was live video on Facebook. Like when all these things happen, we all naturally are curious and we want to play around with these tools. But
Mm-hmm.
again, I would keep the focus centered on, are you truly building a network? Are you engaging with people? The best conversations that happen on social media, Cameron, aren't necessarily in your public feed.
No.
They're over in the direct messages.
Yeah.
When people are like really interested in what you have to offer, they're probably going to reach out to you privately and have conversations with you. And it's no different than networking at an event in person and following up with them. Like there's that art to how do you sell to someone online without necessarily coming off as being salesy.
Right.
And that's the finesse of social media marketing. We call this adding value a lot, but it truly is. It's bringing value to someone. Like I might not know a single thing about the real estate market in Vancouver, but I can tell you this: I've heard and seen you over the years now promote Vancouver real estate so much and investment that like in my mind the words Vancouver real estate and investment seem to go hand in hand. That like
Right.
I am now, my curiosity is piqued about like, well, why is Vancouver potentially a good investment market? Am I missing out on something? Just because I live here in LA doesn't mean I can't be up in Vancouver in a flight in a few hours. So like when it comes down to value, your objective should be not so much how do I sell someone a piece of property, but how do I keep them educated and informed? And if you're keeping people educated and informed, eventually they will have a need or they will know someone that has a need.
For sure. Now, I just want to take things kind of a different direction. So we've talked a lot about Instagram, LinkedIn. What are your thoughts right now on 2019 doing more video content or things like podcasts? Because we are starting to see a bit of a trend. At least I've started noticing some of my own colleagues. They're jumping on. I've been doing now the podcast since the summertime and YouTube now for a year and a half. But I'm noticing a lot more realtors going this route. What do you think in terms like is video an excellent platform that people should be focusing on as well, because you can share it to your Instagram, your LinkedIn, your Facebook, as well as YouTube? And then again, let's shift over. What are your thoughts on realtors doing podcasts?
First of all, I love the fact that you are doing a podcast because it's innovative and you're starting to see within the real estate industry more agents and brokers too doing podcasting. And I think it's great because again, it's a way for you to connect with an audience on a different level that is not just posting a photo or a video. Like, I'm personally a big fan of audio content. I travel a lot. I'm either in an Uber or on an airplane or on a train somewhere, and I've got my AirPods in, and so it's a way for me to be entertained and educated in with some podcasts at least.
Right.
So I'm a big fan of it, and I'd recommend more agents do it. But like find your niche, right? Find what your hook is. Like I like what you do, Cameron, on your podcast, and granted I'm biased because I'm your guest, but I like that you're also mixing it up and bringing people like myself on. I don't think that starting a podcast needs to be difficult. I think for the average agent, you can do a podcast for just people in your community that are business owners or interesting people or entrepreneurs. It doesn't necessarily need to be a real estate podcast. Like you do real estate and you can interject that. And the more people hear your podcasts go out, the more people are going to know that you're a real estate agent. But you don't necessarily need to do a podcast just about real estate. It can just be like, let's talk about Vancouver. Let's talk about whatever city you're in, and you can bring people on. So that's great. I think when it comes to video, again, it goes down to like everything else. What's your value add? I see a lot of poorly produced video content. I'm a big fan of more vlog style content that's telling me a story, sharing a little bit more about who the person is. You've got agents that are just doing home tours. And I think like the whole home tour angle is oversaturated.
Right.
And it's kind of boring, quite frankly. I'm just more like intrigued by who you are as a person. And video is not going away. And I think that you, like I said before, you see more poorly produced video than you see well-produced video. But if you can find a way to reel people in with your personality, with what makes you different, bring people getting value, I'm going to keep saying that, then, over a period of time, you're going to succeed. And, you probably have some listeners out there that are asking themselves like, well, what sort of video content should I be doing that brings people value? Think about doing, instead of home tours, do neighborhood tours. And I'm not talking about a neighborhood, a residential neighborhood. I'm talking about the city that you do business in. So if you go on YouTube right now and you type in what to do in blank, like insert your city there. So like what to do in Vancouver, what to do in Miami, on and on and on. What you're going to see are videos that people are looking up on when they go visit those markets. Because again, they are educating themselves on what to do in those markets. So take the I guess methodology of what your average travel vlogger does and flip it around for real estate.
Right.
So if someone is looking to move to your target market, what are they going to do? They're going to go on Google, and the first thing that they're going to do is they're going to Google what to do in.
Yep.
And it's going to be that city. And because Google owns YouTube, if you have your video content optimized with those keywords, so like a keyword would be what to do in, best restaurants in, best things to do for kids in, best things for families to do in. If you start creating a series of videos like that, your video is going to start to pop up. I guarantee you more and more in Google search and on the first page of YouTube. And that's what you want. You want to hook people with that content. So then when they see who created that content, now they're inclined to go do business with you or to contact you because you're going to be perceived as someone who's knowledgeable about that market.
Yeah, the expert in the market. You're highlighting all the fun things, the reasons why you want to live there. You're highlighting, the schools in the area, whatever the case might be that attracts people to want to come. And again, it's that I like that you mentioned that. It's a search engine optimization. I mean, if you're on YouTube, Google, I mean, that's where people do all their searches right now. So being on there, you're just increasing the opportunity to be seen.
Yeah, and it's easy from my perspective, and it's fun when you are going out and you're spotlighting hot restaurants in your area, or if there's a grand opening, like that's low hanging fruit, right? Think about the businesses that are new into an area. They welcome when someone comes in with a camera or with an iPhone and wants to promote them on social media, because for them, it's being perceived as free press. On the flip side, you can use it to your advantage. You can say, hey, I'm going to do this YouTube video for you, and I'm going to send you a link. When it goes out, do you mind sharing this on your social media? Do you mind sharing this out on your email list? And just make sure that as you're creating these videos in your community, which do steer a little away from real estate, bring it back to real estate from the standpoint of letting the person that's watching know who you are. So if I'm doing a video in Vancouver of, let's say, a brand new restaurant that's opening up, I'm going to do the video and lead in and be like, hey, what's going on, everyone? Cameron Manning here, Keller Williams, Vancouver. Today I'm here. This is what I'm doing. Go show them that info. And then when you close out the video, you go ahead and remind people who you are and how they can get in touch with you.
For sure. And then not only that, I mean, I like that concept because you're not only creating that content for both them, but you're establishing a relationship with that new owner as well. So because again, we go back to everyone has their own database. That person now they feel a connection with you. They might start referring their friends as well, just because you help promote their business. They're going to help promote your business as well.
Exactly. And that's what I refer to as the value exchange. You're giving value up front to someone, and then in return, they're paying it forward and they're giving you value. And I'll share with you a very quick example of that. When I moved to San Francisco a few years ago with a job relocation, I had only been in San Francisco before for conferences. I didn't know what were the best cities for families, like that were family friendly. I didn't know these things. And I immediately took to Twitter to ask my network, and a real estate agent was one of the first people that saw my inquiry and reached out to me, and we ended up doing business together. So those are ways that you can tap into social media. But again, like try the video angle of creating content of what's happening in your community more so than the listings that you take, because the listings are temporary. Like that's the other thing too, right? Once the home is sold, like your objective, if you're listing a home for someone, is that it sells ASAP. So oftentimes you'll go out, you'll spend a lot of money in having a video production company come out and do this amazing video. That home could sell that same weekend, and then what, right? So the video that you do in your community, that has more elasticity.
Yeah. No, I love that. That's awesome. And I do see that. I mean, that's one thing that I do is I'll feature a property on my vlog. I'm like, hey, out at this open house, this is what I'm doing on my day in this area. But again, I'm not going out there trying to make the most beautiful listing videos, because I mean, a house sells in 6 days, and that video, spend $1,000 on it, and it's now null and void. Like you don't really have it past that week. So the return, in my opinion, is not really there. But yeah, again, just going out, doing all those vlogs on what's happening in the neighborhood definitely can make a difference for a lot of people, and it creates you as that area expert versus that one home expert.
Exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of value in being the local expert for all things your city. And I
Absolutely.
talk about that a lot in my social media for real estate agents coaching program. If you can get to the point where you are the most viewed real estate agent in your city because you're tapping into the power of social media, that is going to result in referrals and leads galore and more closed business. Because let's think about it. Someone always knows someone that's in the market for a home. It never fails.
Absolutely.
So what you want to have happen is that when person A and person B are having a conversation and person A says to person B, you know what, I'm thinking about listing my home for sale, or you know what, I'm thinking about, buying a house because I've outgrown my current space. What you want is for person B to immediately say, you know what, you should contact this real estate agent that I always see in my social network. He or she looks like a nice guy or girl, and like they're really knowledgeable of this market.
For sure. Now, you just mentioned your social media for real estate agent course again. It's a good segue. I wanted to talk a little bit about that. Now, obviously, that's that course back when you were with Maps Coaching. That's how you and I connected. Our team was sitting there. We really didn't have an online presence almost at all. Like we signed up for a Facebook page, but we didn't have a lot going on. I myself had an Instagram account for like a year, and I had one photo on it. I didn't personally have a large presence on social media, and when we really decided to get online, my focus predominantly was on growing the team's presence. It wasn't necessarily on my own. So the name Kelly Fry was being branded more than anyone else on the team. And while that's a good thing, because we want obviously the team name, the team to be growing, everyone else needs to be establishing their personal brand on a team. So I just want to, like, from there, when I took the social media for real estate agent course, it kind of opened my eyes. I'm like, there's a significant gap missing in my own personal business. When you're on a team, you're still a realtor and you're still needing to brand yourself. And that kind of like launched me going forward, was taking that course. So I want you to kind of go through a little bit what the course entails, what people can gain out of it, because I truly can speak highly of it. But I mean, you've got the content, you know what you're talking about there. So give us the pitch, why people need to be on social media for real estate agents.
Oh gosh, there's so many reasons why real estate agents should be on social media. First of all, it's a competitive industry that you're in, and if you're not using it, I can absolutely assure you that your own colleagues within your office are using it, and
Mm-hmm.
that's more than likely why they are successful. But I think the biggest reason why, Cameron, besides competition within your own industry, is also where are today's buyers going to be informed of buying decisions or when they're doing research, and that is the internet.
Yep.
Let's face it, regardless of what country you're in, millennials make up the biggest demographic of first time home buyers today. That's no surprise. And
Yeah, absolutely. It's about
shortly
34% right now.
shortly short we will soon see generation Z also into the mix, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they will eventually grow up just like millennials have grown up. So it's just more or less being in with the times and going with where the current is. And one
Yeah.
day it will be something else after social media has run its course. And, by then, if you're still in business, you'll have to, evolve with those times as well. No more, no less than, anyone before us kind of that came up with print had to embrace MLS listings being on
Yep.
the internet.
Yep.
So, I think it's just from a competitive advantage standpoint, you need to be on there. But what my course teaches you is not why you need to be on there, but what to do once you are on there.
Yes.
And, you can correct me if I'm wrong. You've gone through the course now. From my perspective, it's one of the most comprehensive courses out there that exists. I teach everything from how to build your brand, how to create content, on down to how to amplify that content with things like Facebook ads.
Yeah, totally. When I took it again, it was almost overwhelming the first time. So I've actually taken it twice now for the listeners. I took it in 2017 in January, and then a year later, as Carlos changed the course, added more content to it, I took it again because one, I needed a refresher, and two, I'm like, I need to learn more because there's more content and things are ever changing. And I think that's the thing with your course, is that you're keeping the content fresh. As things change in the market with social media, you're updating it as you go and making sure that the agents who take your course are really, when they start, they're getting the freshest information. They're not getting old news on, maybe, if the ad platform on Facebook changed, you're changing along with it, which is fantastic. And that's the thing too, is it's for those listeners, when I realized that I don't have a brand, when I was taking the course, that was my big launch. Now suddenly the Kelly Fry team is recognized with not just having Kelly Fry, but it's also got Cameron Manning, it's got Tanya Corrado, it's got Mark George. So people on the team are now being recognized out in public outside of just the Kelly Fry brand. And Carlos does an amazing job, and he gives you the tools to succeed right out of the gate. Day one he gets it started. But you've also changed the format quite a bit now. When it was with Maps Coaching, it was a 4-week program. Now there's a lot more content. You're providing a lot more access. So maybe you can kind of explain how the program structure is now.
Yeah, so the program structure now is almost exclusively all online based. So you go socialmediacareeracademy.com, go to products, you sign up for social media for real estate agents. And by signing up, you immediately have access to over 40 online modules. So once again, to your point, Cameron, when I first started doing this, it was all live presentations, live coaching. And what I learned was that most agents want to be able to have the flexibility and the autonomy to be able to consume training at their own pace. Now, what I have seen is the biggest advantage from switching from the kind of live webinar model over onto online modules is the fact that you can literally sit there and watch a module that's anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes long. You can hit pause and you can go over to, let's just say, Twitter and apply what I just taught you, and then you can come back and resume the course at your own pace. Whereas with a live webinar, you're getting a lot of information at one time, and then you're having to take notes and then go back and listen and then maybe go back and apply what you learned. So that's what I hear is like great about the program now. Like, I think it's always been great, but I think by being able to give agents that ease that they can take it at their own pace, definitely creates a competitive advantage even for myself as a coach. And then we also do monthly coaching calls, so it's more of a refresher. We just did one earlier this week. Mm-hmm. You were on it, Cameron, yep, and you did a fantastic job presenting. But with those coaching calls, it is more along the lines of a refresher. Try to sprinkle in a couple of updates, a couple knowledge nuggets, and then we do Q&A as well.
I like this format, what you're saying, and how you've broken it up now with the 40 modules, take it at your own pace. Definitely when I took the course, I want to kind of relate it to, it was almost like drinking water from a fire hose, right? Because again, you've only got those 4 modules, you've only got Carlos for 45 minutes and maybe a 15-minute segment after that. So you're trying to capture as much of that information as you can. And like I said, for me, it was still eye-opening, and it allowed me to say, okay, I need to learn more. So I dove in online. YouTube, of course, is a great resource. How to grow this, how to do this on Facebook, how to do that. But now that he's got it in these 40 modules and smaller chunks and it's at your own pace, now you can start doing it in sips of water. And I like that. Pause the video, go implement. Like it's a lot better program this way for realtors to really be able to dive in and learn this at their own pace to make sure that they are gaining the knowledge and then being able to implement it. The fire hose method, it gets people sparked and interested, but then there's a lot more self-learning afterwards. So Carlos, again, it was socialmediacareeracademy.com that they can go and sign up for this course, correct?
Absolutely.
Perfect. So what I'm going to do, guys, is if you're watching this or listening to this, go down into the show notes. I'm going to link it there for you guys. I do highly, highly recommend, if you're a realtor and you're looking to up your brand, up your game, go check out his course. The knowledge there is invaluable. It's a great investment in your business. And just one tactic that you learn that you can implement that can get you one more sale is well worth the cost of the course. Again, you should always be investing in your education and growing as an agent and as a salesperson. So I'll link that below. Carlos, do you have any, closing remarks for our audience today?
I'd say, first of all, thank you, Cameron, for having me on the podcast. Absolutely. I know it's long overdue. I love all the things that you're doing. I'd say to anyone that's listening to this to pay close attention to Cameron Manning. It's just been great to follow you from afar and see the progress that you've made over the last couple of years. And then for anyone listening, whether you sign up for the course or if you don't, if I can be of a resource to you anyway whatsoever, be sure to connect with me on social media. You can find me at Carlos Gill 83 on Instagram and Twitter. I'm also on YouTube, Carlos Gill TV, and you can also find me on Facebook, either my personal profile or my Facebook page. Connect with me on any one of those mediums. So I'm easily accessible. I'm typically glued to my iPhone. So if you have any questions, and if I can be of a resource, be sure to hit me up. And then once again, socialmediacareeracademy.com is the link where you can go and sign up for my social media for real estate agents course.
Fantastic, Carlos. Man, I really appreciate you being on this podcast. It was a long time coming. I'm really excited again for what 2019 is going to bring for this podcast. If you guys are loving this podcast and you want to engage with me, then make sure you use the hashtag ManningUpRE on Instagram and Twitter. Throw me those questions that you guys have. I'm more than happy to do a segment where I answer questions, whether it's about real estate investing, whether it's about building your brand online through social media. We're here to help you guys. And of course, if you do want more content, you can check it out also on youtube.com/Cameron Manning. I'm uploading almost weekly there. Again, Carlos, do truly appreciate having you guys on the podcast here. Carlos, you've been a big mentor of mine for the last 2 years, and I can't wait to continue to network with you, continue to send more realtors your way and help grow what you're doing as well. So again, thank you, and let's do this again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, my man.
Cheers.
Hey now, hey now, hey now, hey now.